Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thanks for coming out today. We hope that we can assist you with the process. And so I wrote a little script just so I wouldn't forget to say things. So I'm gonna read that in a second. Okay, my name's Felicia Donnelly. I serve as the city manager here in Oldsmar, and really thank you for taking the time out of your day to come here, especially during such a challenging time for you. We understand that you all have experienced significant loss, and now you're faced with a daunting task of recovery. The recent flooding has affected not only your house, but your life, and we recognize this, the emotional and the financial toll that this has taken on you and your family. So we want to say that from the bottom of our hearts. Our goal today is to provide you with information and guidance needed to navigate this process. I realize it's overwhelming, and we want to emphasize that the regulations that we're going to discuss are set by FEMA and the Florida Building Code. And so they're essential to ensure safe and resilient recovery. We're here today to support you in every step. We've put out tons of social media. Please call us and come to visit our office. This is not going to answer all your questions. We're hoping that it gives you a baseline kind of understanding, but we're really here to help. I know that many of you don't have a stable place to live right now, and so having these are going to seem like an obstacle. But we have to follow the rules in this case. So we're recording the meeting, so it's being recorded. So that's Mark McGinley, he's recording us. And so the reason we're recording it is we want to be able to share it with people who couldn't come tonight. And so, and we're gonna answer your questions after the presentation. So as part of that, to make sure that we can answer your questions and that we record it, we really want you to fill out a speaker card, and you're gonna hand that to Jordan over there, then we're going to read them. And the reason that we ask for speaker cards is really we've established an FAQ that you got at the beginning. We want to make sure we get all of your questions, because we just brainstormed this list. So we want to make sure that any of the questions that you have are documented so that we can then answer them formally too, so people can pick them up off of a website. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. And then the other thing I want to clarify is that we don't issue building permits. Did you guys know that? Yeah, all of you know that. That is not a surprise. So we have an interlocal agreement with Pinellas County. So that means we can't answer any questions about building. So if you have like specific electrical or construction, we're out. We don't do that. We're not building officials. So the county is that entity that would have those questions. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. So we're also, we do flood review and zoning review before you can take your information to the county. So your first stop is with us. So I also want to make that clear. So we're going to be holding the same exact meeting on Saturday at 2 o'clock. So if you guys have more questions, you're welcome to come back then, right? And then we're going to give a city council presentation next Tuesday. It's going to have the same information. And then we're also going to put the PowerPoint slides and all the FAQs on a website. Have you guys seen oldsmarstrong.com? So we've been really trying to build that so that you have all the resources you need. And again, if it's a lot of information, you can always please, we really encourage you just to book an appointment and come see the planning and redevelopment staff so that we can walk you through your individual situation, because everybody has a different situation. So before I begin, I really want to take a moment to express gratitude to the city staff and to acknowledge Mayor Saraki. He's here. So Mayor Saraki, and I want to acknowledge the commitment of your city staff to really putting together these resources for you. You're looking at a very small department. So we've got Tatiana Childress, she is the Planning and Redevelopment Director, and Mandy Clark, who is a floodplain and building coordinator. And then we've got Matt Jackson somewhere in the back or outside, and he's our planning manager. So, and Nikki Johnson, who Nikki, I'm sorry, I don't know your title, but you're up at the front desk at the planning to help you. And so you're basically looking at a small staff, and we really want to help, so anything that we can do. So I want to recognize our other city staff that's here too. So Jordan is the person with the comment card. She's also the one that put together the website, so thank you, in coordination with planning. And Kristen Garcia is our city clerk. And then we have Michelle Roy is our HR director. Cindy Neno is our administrative services director. You guys know Susan Hurley, who is our library director. Tim Jacobson, who is our construction manager. So I just wanted to, and again, we're here to support you, and we want to help anything that we can do toward your efforts for recovery. So know that that's where we come from, because you're going to hear a lot of regulations coming up. So I'm going to stand here and do this awkward slide movement, okay? So first of all, what is NFIP? Are you all familiar with the National Flood Insurance Program? Flooding is the most common and costly natural disaster in the United States. The program was established in 1968 to help mitigate financial risk for property owners and renters through flood insurance. In exchange, participating communities adopt floodplain regulations. Right now, over 22,000 communities participate, and that provides more than $1 trillion in flood insurance coverage. So the city joined the NFIP in 1971, and so to join the NFIP, we had to specify minimum requirements for structure protection. So that's in our code. It's also in the Florida Building Code, and it's also in the FEMA standards. So it's kind of all three layers. If participating jurisdictions become non-compliant with the NFIP standards, federal regulations require FEMA place under probation. So there's several communities in South Florida that are currently looking at probation 2 years after Ian. So it's a serious issue. So what happens, we get placed on probation. Let's say we get placed on because we're not compliant with the FEMA requirements. Well, they make you become compliant, and if you don't, they suspend you from the program. The whole city suspended from the NFIP program. So that would be a severe consequence to us. And again, we choose to participate in the NFIP. So I want to make that clear. It's a community's choice. So a community can choose not to participate. So what happens if we don't follow the NFIP and we decide that we don't want to be in the NFIP program? These are things to consider. So for all policyholders, so anybody with a mortgage from a bank that requires flood insurance and citizens, you would have to purchase private flood insurance if available, or secure a loan from a non-federally regulated bank that doesn't require flood insurance or face foreclosure. So I have done some preliminary looking at private flood insurance. I am unable to find anybody who writes a policy for special flood hazard areas, which everything south of Tampa Road is. So I don't know if they're out there, but I couldn't find them. So homeowners within the special flood high hazard area, they would not be able to sell their homes to buyers who need to use a mortgage from a federally backed bank. So, or insure their home with Citizens. Citizens now is going to require every policy to have flood. So that's what happens if we're non-compliant with the NFIP. So if a project's in the special high flood hazard area too, we wouldn't qualify for anything. So any hazard mitigation grants, any grants to assist with lifting homes, all of that stuff, we would not be able to apply for. We currently have a HUD grant too that we would probably have to give back for State Street. So all of that money would no longer be available to us. So people ask like, oh, can we just, not be in the NFIP? Well, we can, but there are consequences to that. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows what those are. Okay, so now that I've told you guys all about the NFIP and what that means, now we're going to talk about the process. So hang in, okay? So Tatiana, you're up.
Hello, everyone. Tatiana Childress. I'm the Planning and Redevelopment Director for the City of Oldsmar. And we're going to go on the next slides, we're going to go over substantial damage assessment process. So the substantial damage assessment process, or as we call it, SDA, is a process that's a minimum floodplain management standard and requirement to participate with the FEMA National Flood Insurance Program. What that means that if a disaster hits, our team has to do the preliminary assessment of damage assessment, and then we send this information to the county. County is our building official building official, because we're under the interlocal agreement with Pinellas County for building services. We have to do what we call the building inspections, post-storm building inspections. For those homes that have been flooded, those that may sustain some wind damage from, maybe a tree falling on your home. So it's not just flood related, it's also wind damage or any other, maybe fire or something. So federal regulations require FEMA to place non-compliant jurisdictions under probation and eventual suspension if FEMA NFIP determines a jurisdiction has not met the minimum floodplain management standards. While we're waiting for the inspections right now, we are not able to issue any building permits because we're still doing the inspections, and the inspection may have been already done at your property. However, there's a process behind this, so Pinellas County is reviewing all of the information for that particular property, and they're inputting into the substantial damage estimator, which is a software program required by FEMA again. So we have to go through multiple steps. But I have here a brief video demonstrating kind of like what this process is all about, and also going over some of the terminology. So substantial damage, substantial improvement. See if it plays.
Previous videos in this series discuss the regulation of new development, including the construction of new buildings in the special flood hazard area. But what happens when the owner of an existing building located in the special flood hazard area wants to make improvements to his building? Local floodplain management ordinance also regulate improvements, repairs, and reconstruction of existing buildings in the special flood hazard area. These regulations are the subject of this video. We will address what is considered a substantial improvement to a building, how to determine if a building has been substantially damaged, how to determine the market value of a building, and how to estimate improvement or repair costs. These key terms and acronyms will be used during this presentation. You can find the terms and their definitions at the web address on screen. The National Flood Insurance Program defines substantial improvement as any repair, reconstruction, or improvement to a structure for which the cost equals or exceeds 50% of the market value of the structure before the start of construction. Substantial improvements can include remodeling projects, building additions, or rehabilitation projects. If a building is being substantially improved, it becomes subject to the requirements of the community's floodplain management regulations. In the case of most buildings, this will require that the building's lowest floor, including basement, be elevated at or above base flood elevation. Although elevating a building to comply with this requirement will result in additional expense, it is also one of the most effective means of reducing the risks of future flood-related damages. Closely related to the definition of substantial improvement is that of substantial damage. Substantial damage is defined as any damage that occurs to a structure, regardless of the cause, where the cost to repair the structure to its pre-damage condition equals or exceeds 50% of the market value of the structure prior to the damage. If a structure is substantially damaged, it must be repaired in compliance with the requirements of the community's floodplain management regulations for new buildings. As was discussed in the previous section on substantial improvements, this will typically require elevating the structure's lowest floor to or above base flood elevation. Owners of historic structures located in the special flood hazard area who wish to undertake a construction project that would qualify as a substantial improvement may be exempt from complying with the community's floodplain management regulations for new buildings if three conditions are satisfied. First, the historic structure must be registered on either a national registry or a federally certified local or state inventory. Second, the improvements or alterations must not preclude the structure's continued designation as a historic structure. And third, all possible flood damage prevention measures must be incorporated into the project, such as relocating all mechanical and electrical equipment above the base flood elevation. To determine whether a structure has been substantially damaged, or whether a project will result in a substantial improvement to a property, the local community must first determine the structure's market value. Market value is typically defined as the amount an owner would be willing, but not obliged to accept, and a buyer would be willing, but not compelled to pay for the structure. The market value of a structure can be obtained from a number of different sources, which include an independent appraisal by a licensed appraiser, or the tax-assessed value minus the value of the land. The NFIP considers the cost of improvement to a structure to be the fair market value of all materials and labor involved with the project, and the cost to repair a damaged structure to be the cost required to restore the structure to its pre-damage condition. Even if materials or labor are donated or discounted, or if the property owner intends to do some of the work himself, the fair market value of the materials or labor should be used to determine the cost of improvement or repair. These costs may be obtained from sources that include a contractor's itemized repair estimate, the NFIP proof of loss statement, or qualified repair estimates from the community's building department. Items that are excluded from the calculation of the cost of improvement or repair include plans and specifications, survey costs, permit fees, debris removal, including hauling fees, landscaping, sidewalks, and fences. Several issues commonly arise when estimating the cost of improvements or repairs. First, when calculating the cost to repair a damaged structure, it is important to include all costs required to restore it to its pre-damaged condition, even if the property owner does not intend to make all repairs at that time. Also, the cost of any additional improvements to the structure that the property owner intends to make, along with the repairs, must be included in the total cost of the project. Second, property owners will sometimes try to avoid reaching the 50% threshold by applying for a permit for only part of an improvement project, then later applying for a second or even third permit to finish the project. FEMA, however, requires that the entire improvement project be counted as one, even if it is accomplished through several permit applications. Third, a property owner may carry out several different repair or improvement projects to the same structure over several years without triggering the need to meet current standards. This has the potential to greatly increase the total damages incurred in a future flood event. To avoid this, a community may include in their regulations a provision for counting improvements and repairs cumulatively. Cumulative substantial improvement and repair provisions will be addressed in more detail in video 17. A common challenge for owners of substantially damaged structures is the expense of complying with the community's floodplain regulations. However, buildings covered by a standard flood insurance policy may benefit from what is known as Increased Cost of Compliance Coverage, or ICC. When an insured building sustains a direct physical loss due to flooding and the community determines that the building has been substantially damaged, ICC coverage can provide up to $30,000 towards the cost of bringing the structure into compliance with the community's floodplain management regulations. ICC coverage can be applied to the cost to elevate the structure, move it out of the special flood hazard area, or to demolish it. However, in order to be eligible for ICC benefits, the building must be located in the special flood hazard area identified by the community's firm. Buildings located in zones B, C, or X are not eligible for ICC benefits. Today, you have learned how the NFIP regulates improvements and repairs to existing buildings in the special flood hazard area through the concepts of substantial improvement and substantial damage.
So as I mentioned before, the first step for us to navigate through this process is to initiate the substantial damage assessment. And the substantial damage assessment process is used to determine whether a structure has sustained significant damage due to flooding or other disasters. As a basic rule, as you saw in that video, a building is considered substantially damaged if the cost of repair is equal to or greater than 50%, and for Oldsmar it's 49% because we have higher standards, of the building's market value. So market value is an important word here, before the damage is incurred. So that's the market value before any damages. The market value before the damage, yes. So to determine the market value, as you saw in the video, you can rely on two options. One is the private appraiser. The other one is our Pinellas County Property Appraisers website. They already have this information readily available, so all you have to do is just click on your property and click on FEMA, and it will give you all the information on that one page, so we can help you to navigate to get that information if you don't have a private appraisal. And local officials are responsible for performing these assessments to ensure compliance with floodplain management ordinances and NFIP requirements as the minimum standards. Since we joined the NFIP, as Felicia mentioned, in 1971, we committed to Title 44 CFR to the minimum standards, and this is considered the damage assessment process after any disaster is considered to be a minimum standard that a community, affected community must conduct. This provides a little bit more detailed information on where we are today. So as I mentioned before, City of Oldsmar operates under interlocal agreement with Pinellas County for building services, and that includes those substantial damage inspections. Some of you may have a sticker on your window saying that inspection was done or was performed. So that inspection was for exterior. So if they didn't knock on your door and you didn't let them in, they looked for the watermark on your house and how high that water was at the time of flooding, so they estimate those damages on that watermark that's outside of your house. Now, if you secured your home with sandbags or some other floodproofing, maybe that water didn't get that deep inside your house, so you have an option to request a special inspection in interior for inside of your house, and you can leave your information with Nikki if you would like that interior inspection done. So if you have less than whatever was shown on the outside. Again, today we're at step one, so damage assessments are conducted by the county, and inspectors evaluate damage in the field by taking notes and photos. Then those inspectors' notes are transferred into, as I mentioned before, this SDE, it's the Substantial Damage Estimator tool. This tool is required by FEMA to spit out those substantial damage reports. So we're still waiting today for those reports because county identified that standards, they're using national standards for estimating some of these damages, and say homes in Montana, flooding foundation in 2 feet of water, they're different than what we have experienced here in Florida, in Pinellas County in particular, with some of these slab-on grades, older homes, so the foundation is stronger here. So they're adjusting some of those damages and their weighted percentages, how they put that into that program. Once that information is processed and the quality control is applied, the county is going to transfer that information to the local floodplain administrators or managers, I guess. So that would be Mandy and myself, and we're trying to recruit some additional help to review those and also include our cumulative. So if you saw in the video, one of the higher standards is substantial improvement cumulative. We have a look back on all of the permits to the main structure up to 5 years. So we count all of the permits that you pulled within the last 5 years on the homes that are in the special flood hazard area, for those that are below BFE, base flood elevation. The next steps here, so the city will formally notify those homeowners with affected properties. They will send you a letter. Your property is either substantially, if your property is substantially damaged, and we're trying to set up a one-on-one at that point with that affected homeowner on the next steps. So there might be funding available through grant programs to elevate that structure, or as you saw in the video, you may be eligible for that additional money from FEMA for ICC, increased cost of compliance. And we had some general questions, and this question comes up all the time. So does the federal government require SDAs? So that's a substantial damage assessment. The answer is yes. The federal government mandates that SDA process is part of the NFIP. And the reasons, it reduces the flood damage. It decreases the risk, the future risk. It also provides relief, so taxpayer burden, and it creates affordable insurance. So if we didn't have these regulations, the federally backed insurance wouldn't be available to the residents of Oldsmar. With that, I'm gonna turn it to Mandy Clark, our floodplain and building coordinator.
Hello, everybody hear me? Okay. I recognize a lot of faces out here, so I'm sure we've worked together. Some of you are my neighbors. So I was just going to talk about, I'm a CFM, Certified Floodplain Manager. So my every day I'm doing this, but substantial damage, substantial improvement. As we mentioned earlier, we have a 49% threshold. We also do a 5-year cumulative look back. So we look at those permits and improvements that were done previously. And at any point during that time, if you hit 49%, you could be considered substantially damaged. All properties below the design flood elevation within the special flood hazard area must complete a substantial improvement form. So we have those forms available on our website. It's essentially a cost breakdown. It's also accompanied with an application for construction in the floodplain. Elevation certificates. So we did mention below the design flood elevation, if by chance your home has a current elevation certificate and we determine that it meets the required elevation, has the appropriate flood openings, foundation types, so they're compliant structures, this would not apply to you. So the 50% rule applies to those structures that do not meet the current regulations. So there are some special considerations depending on your flood zone. So just to give you an idea, our coastal A zone and V zones, those are primarily your properties that are seaward of Country Club. So Shore Drive East and West. There's some other locations, Seaside Estates. They would fall in this line. And we can show you what that looks like. So we do have procedures. We have steps to follow based on FEMA guidelines. So she explained some of that. And we disseminated a lot of information on what to do. Document. This is what my home looked like before. This is the damages that were done post-storm. That's not only for your insurance, but that's also documentation for us. And we'll speak a little bit more about some steps. But first thing was, document, remediate. So everybody then tried to keep the damages from getting worse, right? So we've taken all the wet stuff out. We're at that point, and we'll talk about next ones later. The FEMA letter, we can locate that on the property appraisers, and I will show you at the end of this, just for time's sake. And you can also get an actual cash value appraisal from a private, independent, licensed, or certified appraiser in the state of Florida. There is a checklist, so it does have to meet certain criteria. Not all appraisals are equal. So you saw this previously. So the cost of improvement or cost to repair prior to the damage, if that is greater than or equal to 49% in our case of the market value of the building at that time, then you would be considered substantially damaged, or it would be a substantial improvement. This is just a general idea for you guys as to how that tracking of cumulative works, right? You come in for an improvement, your current market value at that time, the cost of the improvement gives you a percentage used. We only track 5 years. This shows like a 6-year track. So we'll do that every time. If at some point, like I mentioned earlier, you hit 49%, then your structure would be considered substantially improved or substantially damaged. Enclosures below BFE. So we do have lots of houses that are elevated homes, or you may have a step down into an attached garage. FEMA requires that these spaces are only used solely for parking, access, and storage. So hence why we don't allow them to be built into bathrooms, offices, any other habitable kind of space, and they should be equipped with flood openings and all the appropriate flood stuff, right? Then I guess we have a word of caution. So, while tempted, do not conduct any work on your home without a permit. If permits are not issued for work, you may have to take the work out. So your investment, your cost to repair may have to be removed. You could face code enforcement actions or lose the ability to participate in the NFIP. And that can be for an individual property owner. It doesn't have to mean that the city is on probation. It could be that you did not want to comply, and you could basically face being blacklisted by the National Flood Insurance Policy. So you would not be able to attain that. So the next steps, you can wait for the SDA determination to be complete. I don't have a date for you. If you had less than 12 inches of water in your home, please contact us. We are trying our best to, maybe some of the homes that had minor damage and are not close, not anticipated to be close to that substantial damage number. Again, we have to look at cumulative, so don't quote me on this, it's just in general. You be prepared to provide documentation, like I said earlier. Do you have a photo where maybe there's a watermark on a cabinet that's only here, but the watermark outside was here, so we would anticipate it to be much higher inside, but maybe that wasn't the case. Maybe you have floors that are permanent. They're not floor covering, and those could be maybe sanitized and reused, right? So you're not actually removing and replacing those. But we would need to know that's what was there, and that would not be a cost associated with your repairs, right? If you disagree with the property appraiser's determination, you have the option to go get an independent appraisal. So we're asking people to expedite this process. You can fill out the application for construction in a flood zone. You can provide us the disclosure form and the cost breakdown. If you have professional cost breakdowns, like you were provided an estimate from a general contractor or tradesman, we would be happy to take those. Who else? Or, maybe you've got a itemized from your insurance adjuster or something saying that these are the repairs that need to be done. Anything you can help us document and move forward. Is that it? Am I done? That's it? Okay. I broke it. No, I didn't. Oh, yes. Let me show you this appraisal here. All right, so I didn't want to single anybody out, so I used an Oldsmar property. So this sits just behind us. But if you were to search your address, you locate that parcel. Here, I'll go back just one. So you do a search. Great, now you're not gonna work. I got it. All right, it pulls up your parcel. On the right, you'll have quick tools. If it's not already open for you, you just need to go over here and click the arrow. The bottom, in the first column, will be your FEMA wind loss mitigation letter. So this is currently what we are utilizing because that is the best information we had available. And these were assessments that were done earlier this year. So if you scroll down to the second paragraph, it's FEMA 50% rule, and we are again just looking at the value of the structure prior to the damage. This, again, because of the cumulative, does not mean you can do that much in repairs currently. You may have had repairs or improvements already done that would make that number look less, right? So I showed you before, maybe you've already used 20% of your allowable, so that could change. But what we're really looking at is this number here. What is the value of that structure? Well, yeah, what I was just saying to them is that number doesn't mean you can go up to 41,000 because you may have had prior cumulative, right? And then just if you guys want to see what this flood map looks like, in case you haven't. This one. So you'll get this splash page where you have to kind of like make it go away. Then you can just do a search for address. Sometimes it takes a minute. All right, so essentially here, blue, special flood hazard area. That brownish orange would be what they call an X shaded. So not that you can't flood, but you have a lower risk of flooding. And then I just wanted to point this out. So as I was discussing earlier, this limois, they call it, this delineates where your coastal properties are versus your non-coastal properties. And that. So coastal A zones and V zones, so anything that is seaward of this black arrowed line, they have certain restrictions. So it would mean that you would have to build on columns, pilings, and piers to the correct elevation, measuring to your lowest horizontal member, of course flood vents and all that other fun stuff, versus your A zones that could do like a backfilled stem wall. So you would have a solid like perimeter foundation and they backfill it with compressed soil and then they put your slab on top. So that's essentially the different requirement. Right, so in the V zone, that's kind of the reason that we no longer allow stem wall and you can't bring fill in because you don't want to adversely affect your neighbors. So the hope is that those columns will deflect less water, allowing it to just kind of flow freely where it wants.
Within that line, there's a wave action, so there's a scour effect. So your foundation slab on grade can be damaged if the water is getting the dirt out from that slab, basically. With columns, it stabilizes the pressure, equalizes the pressure around each column.
Thank you, guys. Again, we know that the regulations are overwhelming. And really, please come and see us so we can talk about your individual situation, because they're all different. Did everyone know the property appraiser's website? Everybody can get to that. I feel like that's a very important number, because if you feel that number is right, then you can have the option of getting a private appraisal. And so that number is basically your the property appraiser's market value is your ceiling for your 50%. So if you think that number should be up here, then that gives you more improvements in your house. Okay, so I'm gonna thank you guys, and thank you guys. You did an excellent job, and I know that everybody appreciates you being here tonight. So there's, I'm going to answer this question, but I'm also going to ask Mandy to just interrupt me if I'm not correct. So it's the market value is on the property appraiser site. So that is what we use on the paper and it says it when you hit on that letter. You can go get an independent appraisal that is actual cash value, and you have to meet. We have the papers in the back that'll explain the regulations. So please don't go hire an appraiser without telling them that you need to meet these regulations, because you'll get a product that won't work. Do you mind writing I want to start with the cards. Is that okay? All right. Okay. So you guys stay patient with the cards, because I really want to try to capture all this. So the first question I got was, is there a website or another means to determine fair market value? I think I just answered that. Okay, the second one is, can I get reimbursed for a hotel when evacuated? And then in anticipation of 18 inches of water was suggested turn off the power, refrigerator, food loss. So we, as a city of Oldsmar, we don't offer direct services like social support services to our community, but Oldsmar Social Services Alliance has a lot of those opportunities. We have a lot of flyers here. I cannot impress enough. I've been to a lot of webinars about all of this in the last month or so. And if you're not registered at disaster.gov, please do that. FEMA has all sorts of resources. I saw yesterday, because they have changed the values of October 1, said that individuals could get individual assistant programs is somewhere like right at $40,000. So is everybody registered for disaster.gov? Yes? Okay. All right. If not, please do. And then also I heard about a nonprofit that will help advocate for them. So I'm trying to get more information about that. Okay, the next one is, how can we easily determine the BFE for property on that FEMA says 11 feet, which states that's a Mandy question, so I'm gonna pass that. How can we easily determine the BFE for property?
Okay, you might want to write this down. I think we're gonna get these out to people.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So the flood insurance rate map, the firm that I just showed you, if you search your address, it's going to show you what firm panel you're on and what that flood zone is. So I'm going to use an example, AE 12. In the coastal floodplain, which is all of Oldsmar, Sorry. So in the coastal floodplain, FEMA publication 480, you must add 0.4 feet to that rounded BFE. So it shows 12, now you're at 12.4 feet. And the state of Florida Building Code requires 1 foot of freeboard above that. So your 12 turns into technically a 13.4 feet above mean sea level. It's not the grade of the ground. It's measured in North American vertical datum, so they use benchmarks, and a surveyor would be able to tell you how high off the ground that needs to be. That would be to your finished floor level in that instance. When we're talking about your CAS and your VE zones, they then measure to the lowest horizontal member. So it's not the top of floor, it's the lowest horizontal structural member of the building. that answer?
All right, thank you. That's why I did not answer that question. I've got something about, is there funding allocated for drainage upgrades or other flood mitigation projects for the city? Yes, sort of. We were one of the first communities in Pinellas County, the only small community to do a vulnerability assessment, and that I think we did in 2018 or so. We started in the last capital improvement program. We started with a stormwater master plan. We never had one for the city. So we advertised for the public meeting, so we're wrapping that up. That is going to give us a large list of projects that we're going to have to figure out how to fund and prioritize. So we are working on stormwater master plan. Again, we didn't have one, so we felt it was important to have a stormwater master plan that would give us those projects. And we also have a resiliency plan. So all of those cost a lot of money, but we'll be looking for grant funding. Okay, why are we not getting a permit? Why punishing homeless people? I need permit as soon as possible. I think we've all heard about why we can't issue permits. We don't issue the permits, Pinellas County does. So that would be a big reason. But we have to follow all of the regulations before that. And I know that's not the answer you guys want to hear. I understand that. Can you explain the difference between market value and adjusted market value?
Unfortunately, Mike Twitty is not here. I cannot really answer that for you. I can tell you that 3 years ago, they started making that FEMA letter determination available. And it is, from my understanding with talking to them, a very complicated formula that is done behind the scenes. So it's not that I could look at their assessment values and determine what that number is. We rely on them to produce that number.
So we're sorry we don't know that, but Mike Twitty can help us out with that. And we're going to put these up again on the FAQs, and we're going to try to get really good answers. That's why we asked for them. Okay, so I got what can be done that doesn't apply to the 50% rule. Actually, there is some things. I want to say about 2 years ago or last year, there was an adjustment made that made some things that don't apply, and those are things like storm windows, things that met certain hurricane requirements. So maybe.
So yes, we made an amendment to the flood ordinance a couple of years ago now, and it doesn't exempt it from the 50% rule. Basically, if you want to do a project that is solely hardening of the structure or energy efficiency, then we will run it against the 50% rule. So at no point in time can we exceed our 49%. But it won't accumulate. So it comes in, it's 30%, it's solely, I'll use solar panels as an example, or maybe impact windows, right? So you're going from your old non-impact to your impact windows. Let's say it's 30%. Fine, cool, you're good. And then when you come in for your next project, that percentage isn't accumulated into your past or future.
So does it count against you?
Essentially, right. So essentially, we're not going to keep that 30%. That 30% is evaluated and it goes away.
Right. So you spent $32,000 on windows, and you've done it in the last 5 years, but it doesn't count toward the 49%.
Towards the cumulative, towards the 5-year run track.
Right. It's not.
It will fall off, that cumulative.
What was the question? Okay, sorry. The question was, what can be done that doesn't count against you for the 50% rule? Did I get that right? Okay. And the answer was there are some hardening, mitigation, energy efficient retrofits that can be done that are measured against the rule but not accumulated. So that percentage does not get counted into that tracking.
then the next part is what can be done without a permit. Really not a whole lot. Everything, even as I understand it, is paint requires a permit. So they're very serious about the permitting. And so and again, this is Pinellas County, and just so you all know, and the word of caution is other communities. So FEMA will, they did this in other communities. When they come in audit, which is about guaranteed, they pull a house, they pull all the substantial damage, and then they pull all the permits. And then they check to make sure you have permits that match your damage. So that's why we put that on the caution, but technically you're supposed to have a permit for everything. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to move on. We don't require that, Pinellas County does. So as part of the rebuild process, will everything need to be brought up to current code? For example, new electrical outlets are needed, but what about the wiring? Houses built in the 50s, 60s utilized cloth-covered electrical wiring. Our house was built in 1959, so it's cloth wiring. Does the entire house need to be rewired? That's a building question, a building construction question. We don't know the answer. We're not a building official for that.
We will provide the phone number for Pinellas County Building Department with the contact information, and that information could be then obtained from Pinellas County directly.
Absolutely. Can you guys,
From the
do you mind?
building
I've got a
official.
stack of cards. So do you guys?
This is an answer to the question.
Oh.
We just had Mr. Sparky out at our house, and we're built in 1959 with the cloth and that. They recommended, and it wasn't just they've come out and done stuff for us before. They recommended replacing it because they said the salt water got into the wiring and all that, and it's going to be brittle. They said it's going to be a fire hazard. So it wasn't
Thank
they
you.
were trying to sell us. They said, yeah, that's.
Thank you very much. Anybody have if you can interrupt on one thing, and if I don't get through the cards, is that if you have the answer for somebody else.
The same thing. The cloth wiring that was wet needs to be replaced. And you replace it just above that wet line, and junction boxes present it. Somehow they are not structurally able to rewire it without ripping the ceilings out, ripping the roofs out, because we got faulty ceilings. So just the wet wire has to be replaced.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Can you folks, as the city people, do something to address this issue? Because this is an issue I have, apparently many people have this, and when we've talked to our flood appraiser, they seem to have no idea about this cloth wire, and a lot of the houses in this area have it. And we're getting ridiculous estimates from the electrical contractors to repair it.
Can you guys reach out to the county and get an answer?
Yeah, we can reach out to the county, but again, we're not the building code people, but we can reach out.
I understand you're not in charge of the building, but you, as representatives for our small community that has apparently a fairly unique problem, can you reach out and try to make this known? Because we need some help with this problem, and we're not getting good answers.
Yeah, we'll reach out to the county. Okay, so the next one is the SDA binding to insurance company or owner only if flood insurance and homeowner's insurance to pay if cost is 50% or more, and the owner is forced to pay for costs they didn't pursue and paying insurance against. I don't know the answer to that about the private insurance.
That's my question. Now, you're coming here in the beginning of the meeting, you lay it down the authority that you're working with.
Right.
FEMA says, the Bible says, God says, whatever the limit, beyond the limit. After that, we are required to pay for a cost that we're paying insurance against. Then if the damage assessed by the insurance says, this is 10%, and your appraiser will come and say, no, you're 50% damage, and you have to replace this, build this. So we paid one time for the insurance. They will not pay us back. The insurance will not pay us back for the damage that we're paying insurance for, not for fun, just to help us in a time like this. And you come from FEMA or the city or the county, whatever the powers to be, and say, you replace this out of your pocket. We go to the insurance, you assess this $10, the city is now asking us to pay $100. And we are lost in the middle. We don't know from where
we will afford this cost if it goes beyond what we can afford, and we cannot live in the house without repairing it, and you're not giving us permit, not you, not the city, the county, whatever. So we are stuck in the middle, and we don't know from where to get answers. So if you're forcing me to say that this cost is 100,000, you have to have the same power that you're talking with the same authority to me as a house owner to talk to the insurance to pay the same amount, because I'm paying insurance not in a friendly relationship. It's a contract. So I didn't have a contract with the city to come dictate to me what to do in my house. So I paid the insurance to cover the damage happens from the flood. So to whom we close this gap?
Yeah, so
Between your appraisal and the actual cost.
yeah, so actually, I don't know how to close that gap, to be honest. And that's, you know, an insurance conversation with the state of Florida. And also, if you have, you know, flood insurance, I understand there's a cap on that at $250,000. So I think those are the state talking like a bigger issues that Florida. We all know that insurance has been challenging in the state of Florida. I don't have an answer for that for you. I can't recommend that. So Terry asked if we should get an attorney. I don't know the answer. This is
It's a congressional change, so it's a
Yeah.
FEMA, it's a federal regulation, so it's Congress. So
yeah, it actually is right. It's a congressional regulation. So to change, you know, federal laws is that we talk to our representatives and Congress. Okay. Right. Okay, so the letter I received states NFIP provides federal disaster assistance. What do they do for the residents for the storms that just hit? Grants, loans? That FEMA disaster has a lot of resources, and then I was in a meeting yesterday, and more of those may open for our residents. So they kind of, the way I understand it, is that they open up these channels of funding depending on the storm. So I understand that FEMA is working. So basically, the Florida Department of Emergency Management is our local FEMA representatives. So I feel like that we've seen more things open up. So there may be more funding available. I just don't know the answer. So, but really just we call it FDIM and FEMA. Okay, will you be having a town hall meeting with the building department to provide more information? This is our version of that, and then you guys are free. You know, we're trying to help you the best that we can. So within our scope of authority, what we can. So just you can call us if you have any questions. If we need another one of these, and you know, as we continue down the road, we'll do that for you all. Oh, is that what it? Thank you. Will you be having a town hall meeting? No, it didn't say with the building department. Oh, yeah. Pinellas County is working on some things. I really wanted to have this meeting before they have their bigger meetings because I felt the clock ticking, to be honest. So even though we don't have all the answers, I felt like we wanted to still meet with you all. And so the county is planning on doing something. I don't know what that is. Okay, how do we find the 5-year improvements info? You ask Mandy. So Mandy, we track all that. So Mandy has everything that was done to your house within the last 5 years.
I'm sorry, that was my question. Is it available online, or do we need to call?
I don't think we have that available online. So, so just.
Because I thought it was on the Pinellas County site. I
Oh.
didn't see the different improvements that have been made and the dates and the dollar amounts. So I thought it was there, but I wanted to make sure.
That's a good question. Hold on.
So, yes, you can see the permit list for your property. I think it links back up to Pinellas County's Acela. Since 2021, they've been issuing all of our building code related permits. The problem with that is that if you didn't pull that FEMA value determination for the structure, prior to that permit, it's not available online. So you wouldn't be able to get A plus B to equal C. So again, if you pulled a permit in 2021, unless you pulled that letter saying this is what the market value of my structure is at this time, you won't be able to determine what the percentage used on that improvement was. So it's not something that's available online. Yes, you can get the information. The easiest way is to contact our office, and I have that property by property. So I'll have the value at the time you pulled the permit, the cost of that permit, and it'll have a percentage used. The next one, I do the same thing. So then I'll have a running tally.
Okay, so I've got what are we doing about homes not being cleaned and cause more problems with flooding? Code enforcement didn't respond when the issue was addressed. We don't have strong tools in our toolbox to enforce that on a local level. So we don't have a way to code enforce that. So what the county is looking at doing is habitability and some sort of safe home. They're going to be announcing more of these programs, but like safe home inspections that may allow people to stay in their houses while they're rebuilding and have some minor permits, but they haven't announced all this yet. So I feel like a safe home inspection is going to come up, and that may address some of those problems. So as the county's really working to be flexible, just, you know, this week is when we found out that if you have 12 inches or less of flooding, they're opening up this expedited channel. So really, you know, stay tuned, because I feel like more of that's coming. Every meeting I'm with the county, it seems like they're trying to figure out other avenues. Okay, if your home is considered substantially damaged, does your insurance pay out for a complete loss, or do they only pay out with their determination? I don't know the answer to that. Their determination, I'm hearing from people who've already contacted their...
Never were going to get a total loss.
Okay, so their...
House is gone. Right.
So their determination, thank you for that.
What was that question again?
It was... The question was, if your home is considered substantially damaged, does the insurance pay out for complete loss? And the answer is no. That's a resounding no. It sounds like she's checked.
As long as there's still a structure standing.
Okay, as long as there's still a structure standing. Okay, what happens if we don't have the funds to bring home up in Oldsmar to FEMA standards? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. You know, FEMA, I don't know what, I don't have the answer.
Can you find that answer for us, please?
So the reason that I don't have the answer
I'm not asking
is,
why you don't have it, I'm asking if you can get it.
Yeah, I can't get it yet because they're opening up all these channels. So it may be possible that the state of Florida applies for hazard mitigation funding to help people elevate, but they haven't done that yet. So right now, I don't have an answer.
Is there a timeline?
There's no timelines. Nobody's giving us any timelines. They're not committing to any sort of timelines. Right. Right.
So they'll foreclose on your house if you don't do this?
Well, if we don't participate, right. So if we don't participate. I really don't know that to be the case, but I do know you can't, that's why it's important for us to have the national, so people ask, like, can we not participate in National Flood Insurance Program? The answer is yes, but then there's no mortgages without federally backed insurance, and they all require insurance if you have a mortgage.
I have a two-part question. If the county left a notice on your structure, does that mean the SDA is already happening based on, and you weren't there, they didn't go inside the house. Are they already doing that based on the watermarks from the outside of the structure?
They are. They have about, they said they have about 20, I think they said 21 or 24,000 homes that are getting inspected throughout the county. We actually made a emotional plea to get ours done as quick as possible. So they actually started here before they started in other unincorporated areas because we wanted that process to be fast. So they've done a lot. They have a big process with that. So just because it's inspected, they still have a QA/QC process. This whole thing that Tatiana showed, they have to give us a report. But I feel like there's a lot that have actually had eyes on. Now, the other thing that Tatiana had suggested was sometimes your outside watermark doesn't actually show the inside flood level. So we can, as a homeowner, you can request to have it re-inspected. So that would be an important part to know.
So the second part of my question is, it sounds like the county is coming up with their own assessment of damage. Flood insurance is coming up with their own. So which one, which dollar value of damage?
It's all part of the same program.
They will check them eventually. So your flood claims, I believe they will be checked against your assessment at county, and that's what the QC process at the county. So they're double checking to make sure that all the numbers make sense before they spit out the report.
They will communicate
back to
with the
us.
federal government to make sure their numbers match?
They are getting those numbers from the federal government because your claims information is available to them to check those numbers.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the other thing that we learned from, there's a few communities who are on probation right now, or who may be entering probation from Ian. So FEMA didn't come in until 2 years later to audit them. And one of the things that they say is they have all the information. So they check all your claims data and check to see if you have a permit. And then they actually will force us to code enforce you. And then as Mandy said, you know, we individually could take properties unavailable for flood insurance. They call it 1316 program. But then they'll force the city to take action until we get compliant. So that's why we caution everyone, please don't do work without a permit, because they have all your claims. FEMA can audit everything. So that's not like, so I want to make sure that you guys.
Why is the county doing their own assessment when you've already had a flood insurance person in there to detail every little thing inside the house?
Yeah, because it's yeah, well they are. So, okay, so that may be a little bit confusion. So that when we say FEMA did, that's through the county. That's all the same. So the county, I'm sorry, that's what you guys, if you had an inspection, oh, you had FEMA, but I'm going to pass that over because from what I'm aware of.
You probably had a flood insurance agent who inspected your home and wrote a claim.
Yes, and so did FEMA. That deemed we get nothing.
So I am not sure. Maybe we're already being audited as part of this. I'm not sure, but there should be a check. So between your claim, between the damages that field people, like you saw them.
Yeah. So if you guys saw FEMA people, that's what actually happened in South Florida. We weren't aware that they're inspecting houses, but FEMA inspected, so we got the county inspecting, and then they do that so that they can measure all the stuff later.
Hey, Felicia, if someone's not going to ask a question on the microphone, can you repeat it just so the people outside know what the question is?
Yeah, okay, I'm trying to stick to the cards on the microphone just for that. So the county is performing the substantial damage assessments. They've hired a company, it's called Tidal Basin, who's doing those. So those are the inspectors that we're aware of that are walking around. Then you have your insurance adjuster who does your own. And then we have,
So I believe that FEMA sends their inspector only when your insurance denies your claim. So then they send. That's what the FEMA representative mentioned. Oh, so, or if you don't have insurance, that's right, so.
Okay, so we don't know why FEMA is at your house.
we don't know.
Okay, hold on, everyone. Two.
From FEMA at my house. The disaster, the government disaster, they automatically set you up with an agent from FEMA to come to your house
Okay, so thank you, Rhonda. So that's it. So when you apply for disaster.gov, they're sending out an inspector, their own inspector, unrelated to the county's substantial damage assessment process, and unrelated to the insurance person. Okay.
I think that all of us would rather get "I don't know" as an answer rather than factually wrong answers. So please, if you guys don't know the answers, don't tell us wrong answers. We would really appreciate that. No, that was the wrong answer. She gave us wrong information, and it's not helpful.
I was on the phone, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was on the phone with the FEMA representative who said that they were not going to send a FEMA representative to your home unless you did not have insurance, your flood insurance, or your homeowner's insurance was denied if it was like wind damage, or your flood claim was denied. So that's a FEMA representative that I received
that is
information
incorrect.
From.
That's incorrect.
Coming from FEMA. I'm sorry.
It's incorrect.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm gonna keep going. Okay. So if we give you wrong information, it's because we've received incorrect information. Okay. So how does the preceding value allocation to the structure apply to the $30,000 for elevating? We don't know. That is, FEMA has money available to elevate your houses through a grant program if you meet certain criteria. And that's what we know, what you know on the video. Okay, can we have an idea of when we can expect our SDAs? We can't wait 3 months, as most of us can't live in our homes. The links for housing assistance leads us to a lot of no one calling us back. No, we don't know when the SDAs are going to go. Like, that's what we've been told, that they won't commit to a timeline. So we just don't know.
How are you going to contact us to let us know? When you find out, how will we know?
You'll know because you'll get a letter from us that says you're substantially damaged.
But if we're not at the house, we may not get the letter. So, like if you have a water bill and you have an email address or something, can you email it? We're getting email where we're at, but we're not getting mail.
That's a really good idea. So, if you guys signed in, and I don't know how to manage that, but that's a great idea. So we have to send it to your house. That's part of the guidelines. But if you, we can also maybe send it to the email address that we have on file. All right? Okay. And we'll try our best to do that.
Then what? Are we not getting a letter? Or are we just kind of assuming that we're okay? Christmas comes and I have a letter. I'm like, oh, all right, I guess I'm moving back in.
You probably still have some damage at your home, so you'll just have to fill out the form, substantial improvement form, and we'll push you through the county approval. They will issue the permit with your typical repair.
Are we getting a letter either way? Are we getting a letter if we are substantially damaged and we don't meet the percentage, or if we, how does that work? How are we supposed to know?
The letters will be sent primarily to those that are substantially damaged, and the appointments will be scheduled.
Okay, but every home is being inspected. So can we please, every single home that's inspected, know the outcome of that inspection?
That's the intent, and most people, they've already submitted something to us. Not most, but we had a lot of applications. So we have applications that are pending substantial damage assessments review. As soon as those inspections are completed and reports are in our jurisdiction, we will notify, especially those that submitted. That's why we're right now trying to say, please fill out this form. That will allow us to prioritize and send them to the county as soon as possible. So.
Yeah, and we can try to do another mailing, and so of the properties that aren't substantially damaged. I mean, we can try to do that. We have an idea, but we won't hit every property owner, right? I mean, we hope that if you're in the database and you had somebody from Pinellas County come, then you should be in our database so we can send out something after we start getting in the SDAs from the county.
Can you not get it through that website? Like today, I called the number on the website, and
I was
given the form. She told me she could email it to me, or I could come pick it up at City Hall. So I picked it up at City Hall.
Yeah, so we're talking about a different thing. We're talking about if you have, when we're doing the substantial damage assessments, when we get that information from the county, we're required to send letters to the homeowner saying that you're were substantially damaged. Now, so that is the SDA letter. What you're talking about is actually a permit application.
No, I got the SDA letter. I was able to today. It's got all the values.
Oh, so from the FEMA, from the property appraiser's website, it has that letter. That's.
No, I called the number, Oldsmar Strong, and I called that number, and I spoke to somebody in City Hall. She was back here, and she pulled it up for me. She was going to either email it to me, or I could come pick it up. So I went.
Let's talk after, because I have no idea what letter you're talking about, and Nikki's back there, so maybe she can help. Okay. Utility companies are providing credits to those affected because we can't occupy our homes. Will the city utilities being offering credits for those affected? We are, so that's something that the city council can consider. We have a master bond resolution that doesn't allow us to give away water. So that would be that. But the council can consider that. We did delay shutoffs. So you guys probably didn't notice that, but we delayed shutoffs. Okay, so how to make an appointment for an SDA determination is again, they're out surveying now and doing those damage assessments. So if you want priority, then you could submit the package of the forms, and then the county, I understand, will give priority.
I think this was briefly discussed, but number 2 there, if you feel like you qualified, I have photos. My water line was only 9 inches. We could potentially start expediting some of those, and with the assumption that you are not near the 50% rule, right? So that requires you to apply, me to look at your prior cumulative, and try to make a determination if you're going to become close to that threshold.
I have a question. So, on the... So, a few years ago, we refinanced on my house down in Devonshire, and we had an appraisal done as part of that process, a very detailed appraisal. That number is way higher than what is going to be on the tax assessment, right? So can I take half of that number, the real number, or do I got to use what's on the tax assessment? Because that's not very high. I think I speak for a lot of people in here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to hand it to Mandy.
So, yes. You can submit any documentation. I'll be happy to look it over. The appraisal will have to meet certain criteria for it to be appropriate for the intended use. So we do have a checklist. I can make it available to you, but we can also work with that appraiser to maybe see if he could re-evaluate based on the criteria.
Okay. Because it's been very...
Yeah, so the property appraiser has put out some information about that, and so I would suggest that you look at that. But I understand that just look at it. I feel like they're trying to help that situation.
Okay, and to clear up some confusion around FEMA, I filled out the forms the morning after they opened at 2 a.m. I want to say it was like the Friday after Helene. Okay. I had an inspector, an adjuster, come to my home, completely botched it, and a quality control guy from FEMA came about 8 days later and told me to my face that they marked my home as a single occupant, single bedroom, which We're a family of 4 and we have 3 bedrooms. My kids were running around this guy as he was doing the assessment. Boggles the mind. But we were denied everything. And I'm pretty sure that's pretty common. So, do we have people from FEMA, or is there a place we can go and speak to these people? Because I don't have time to sit on the phone for 7 hours. Your caller number 796 was yesterday. I don't have time for that. I'm busy mitigating my house because we need to get back in our house. And I'm sure this is a common problem because we got no place to go. We're couch surfing, right? So where's FEMA? Where can we talk to them face to face?
Yeah,
because we don't have all the documentation. They're asking for like 15 documents per line item during the appeals process. It's craziness. It's craziness. We lost all of our paperwork, or almost all of it. So what do we do?
Yeah, so we can always request that FEMA come back. They were here for like a week or so, and then Representative Luna was here with her staff, and so they were here like all day. But we can certainly request that FEMA, come to Oldsmar to help us. Now, whether or not they will say yes, I don't know, but we'll ask. I'm sorry. Hang on a second. Wait, Jordan? Okay.
This gentleman here mentioned that he had gotten an appraisal and wanted to know if he could use that. Can we get an appraisal after the fact and use that, or does the appraisal have to be from prior to the storm damage?
So while I do...
So, yes, the appraiser will backdate the appraisal as if it was prior to the damage. So, again, this is where like photos and all this fun stuff really come in handy, because based on what they know to be true, they can appraise the house as if it were the day prior to the storm. Does that answer?
Yes, thank you.
You have to resubmit that appraisal to the county to get it approved, correct? If you reappraise.
So you'll submit that to us. We're gonna verify it. We have a little checklist that we vet these appraisals to make sure that they're appropriate for the use. Make sure they're dated prior to. So we have a fun little checklist that we do. And we would utilize whichever number was more beneficial. Property appraiser's number is more beneficial, or the independent appraisal number is more beneficial. We have the option to use either.
Okay. Do you have the form that the appraiser will need here tonight?
The question is, do I have the form the appraiser will need? It's a checklist, and I do believe we have them printed in the back.
Okay, and then the next is if the city, county, state, FEMA can enforce the SDA on insurance companies, why would you enforce it on the homeowners? Is that the only help you're offering us? Unfortunately, we have to follow the FEMA process as long as we participate in the NFIP program.
The processes are delaying us building back.
I understand that.
What is the city doing as far as talking to the county to try and expedite that?
So I think maybe you were outside, but earlier we did ask for our substantial damage process to be one of the first. So they've been they were here a lot earlier than they were in their own unincorporated residence.
So we don't have a timeline on that, right? So
We don't. They won't give us a
We
timeline.
wouldn't even be able to go to work for another couple of weeks, maybe in a month.
Yeah, I understand,
I
and
could already have had my house put back together.
I understand, and I don't want to sugarcoat, but
All these delays and controls that FEMA and the county has put onto us is actually accruing costs. People are staying in hotels, having to stay out of town. This is bullcrap, man.
yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I mean, what is the city of Oldsmar doing to expedite this? We really need to get in our face. Where's the mayor at tonight?
He was here.
He was here? Can we have him get in front of Pinellas County and make some noise? Because we're ready to build back.
Yeah, so we got they're doing the SDAs now for us. So, we put on the website too, you can watch the BOCC meetings. I think that might be helpful. We have a lot of resources like on our website to watch. But, we're part of the Pinellas County this is an unprecedented event, as you know. So lots of areas, the beaches are in really bad shape. So.
To people with RVs in the front of the house, the ordinances? So
the ordinances for the RVs, again, this is how I understand it, is that the city of Oldsmar already allows RVs at your house, right? You can have an RV at your house, yes. And then the DeSantis put in. So you can have an RV for 36 months through a state preemption. That's correct, Tatiana. And then, but I did hear, which I was sharing earlier with somebody. I was at a meeting yesterday about FEMA trailers. Like, they're unlocking all these channels of funding, but they said that FEMA trailers you can't put in a flood zone. To which I had your emotional reaction over there. I was like, really? Okay. So we're trying to work through that. But as far as we're concerned, Tatiana, did I say it right? Your RV can stay there for 36 months.
And then what happens after 36 months?
As long as you can demonstrate compliance, continuous compliance, you're pulling permits or you're trying to secure some financing or you're working on your permit so you can keep that RV. Right.
Okay, so
that's the state preemption again. And the RV that are going to be donated, they're trying to see if they can put them in AE zone. So coastal A and V zone, they will not be permitted, the ones that are donated from FEMA. But the ones that are in AE, which is the majority of the city of Oldsmar, so they're trying to see if they can actually waive that requirement, so they could be there.
Are they going to find a place to be able to put those places, or people that live in those
Your
zones
own, so if, for instance, if you get an RV through FEMA, and they're saying, well, you can't put it back in your zone that just flooded, in your different zones, they have V, velocity, high velocity zone, then you have coastal A. So those two zones, you still won't be able to place them in. But if you're AE zone,
but what I'm saying is, will the city allow people that live in A, are they going to give us a place in that AE to be able to, if we qualify for that trailer, to put it? Because if I qualify for it, but I can't put it in my yard.
They were looking more for
they wanted to put
commercial
They
sites.
wanted to put us 15 miles on the east side of Tampa in a hotel. So.
Yeah, so we don't have a good answer for that. As far, you saw the flood map. It's like everything we have south of Tampa Road is in a special flood hazard zone.
Agreed, but I'm saying, but we live in that zone, we qualify for a trailer, but they're saying, oh, you can't have it because you live in the zone that you qualify to have it for.
That is correct. That is what I heard yesterday.
I spoke to FEMA specifically about the trailers, and they said that they yes, to confirm what you're saying, not in a flood zone. So they tried to throw the hotel at me, and just like everybody else, is way out of the way. Yeah. And they said the trailers could be potentially, they could have a trailer pool and a commercial park, whatever that is. So if there's a commercial park in Oldsmar, you might want to talk to FEMA, because they can start lining up Tent City for all of us up there, so we don't have to do what we're doing.
Yeah, and the county is advocating for the trailers, so they're advocating to be, because they have the same, like, think about the beaches. That's right. Like where, so the county, from what I understand from the call that I was on yesterday, is the county's advocating for some exceptions, how we're going to do this. So, the county really is advocating for all of its residents. Okay, was this helpful to you guys? I know that it's emotional and no. Okay. It wasn't helpful. Okay, all right. So I just wanted to know if we should do it again. That's the question. And yeah. Yeah, I've already requested that. I've even requested that they have North County community meetings, and said we will travel. We will go wherever Pinellas County is.
I was just wondering, do
like, is there anybody who can help us with this packet? Because this is kind of overwhelming, filling these out. Because we didn't have that much damage, so, but...
Okay, so my best recommendation, if you are not working with a contractor or a tradesman who can give you an itemized list, go to your local home improvement, see, you know, how much square footage of drywall you need, what your baseboard costs are going to be, and then you're going to give a labor amount, even if you're doing the work yourself. So that would be the
But even if we're doing the work ourselves, we can't get a permit, so how can we do the work ourselves? We can't, right?
Well, you may be able to get a permit.
So Pinellas County will give homeowners a permit to do the work themselves.
You'll have to come through us, and we'll have to evaluate it case by case.
Excuse me, folks. We still have some questions and answering going on, so we just keep it down so everyone can hear the information being provided. Thank you.
Thank you.
Because when we came into the office yesterday in Oldsmar, the answer was no, you cannot do anything yourself. You have to have a licensed contractor. But that's not true. So if my husband can do all the work,
our forms
can he
would
do the work?
require you as a homeowner to sign them, the disclosure form, the cost breakdown. When you get to county permitting process, as I understand it, Florida statute would allow an owner to pull their own permit, building permit, if it's your primary residence and you do not sell within 12 months of the permit.
Wow. Okay.
But yes, the best recommendation I can say on filling that out is do your shopping at one of the improvement stores, see what all the materials are going to cost you, put a reasonable labor rate, and that'll be like our best estimate.
I was going to say, if she gets a professional contractor to bid it for her,
If you get a contractor to give you a bid, then you may have all that information on that bid to use for yourself.
That is correct, yes.
I thought it had to be a contractors do not break it down by this. They're not going to send you an itemized list like this. No. Unless you pay a lot of money.
I've seen contracts that don't itemize. I've seen contracts that do itemize. You may have to ask them to do that. They're creating.
We do not itemize things like this.
But
unless you pay a lot of money for an itemized list, you're not getting this. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts.
But that number that you're quoting somebody has to be from somewhere.
Breakdowns of electrical, plumbing, and division. So construction division, you will get a breakdown of division. You're not going to get a price for screws, no, or drywall, or baseboard. That's not going to happen unless you pay for it.
So again, I go back to my best recommendation is if you're not working with tradesmen, because a lot of times they will break down what they're doing. If you can go to a home improvement store, put everything in a shopping cart, find out what your materials are, and then produce like a reasonable labor rate for it.
Sorry, so to kind of piggyback off that, I think where our confusion comes from is we do have an itemized statement from our contractor, which is different than the flood insurance estimate, which is also different from FEMA's. So I don't know which one to go by and which one is more accurate, I guess. So how do we determine that?
So I think you could submit what you have, and we'll definitely look it over and see if we can make a determination based on what you have.
Yeah, we're happy to take that and take it, and then we will send it to the county to see what like forms there. And again, the county's still working on some standardization. So
Right. It's just really confusing for everybody. So because of, I guess, probably speak on behalf of everyone, the lack of communication as well. We didn't know about this until, what, 2-3 days ago? At least I didn't. We had already started. So what happens to those people who's already spent thousands of dollars already fixing the house because nobody told us? Is there going to be some type of leniency for that? Because you've got thousands of people that need help.
So we currently have not cited anyone on a code enforcement action at this point. We are doing our best just mostly as a public service announcement to you, that if it's possible your structure is going to be deemed substantially damaged, you don't want to invest all that repair money to find out that your house isn't compliant, you're substantially damaged, and you may be forced to rip it out. We may be forced to reevaluate the whole situation.
And also, we would like to understand like we've done a lot to try to communicate. We've passed out flyers twice. We've been social media, website, all sorts of things. It's like, call us before you do any work. So if, oh, right, yeah. Yeah, so.
But the first day after the storms, people from the city of Oldsmar were walking around and looking at our stuff. Isn't that when the assessment should have been done? Isn't that the information that we should be using? Like, again, we're getting so much misinformation from so many different people, and then we tell them we can't do anything about it. Like, it just, yeah, I mean, repairs was one word that apparently encompassed everything. Everything. I mean, good God, when I just heard the thing about permits for paint, how? I mean, who else knew that? Did anybody know that? Like, was that legit? Like, how? Like, this just sounds crazy. And, like, how do other communities, like, how, you know, the people that got, you know, have been hit before, like, have they all gone through this? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. There's got to be some way to make things a little bit easier.
Yeah, and
like I said, repairs is, come on, repairs, how can we ever expect to understand that that meant everything? Everything in my own home, my home.
We understand your frustration.
From all the things that we do, the things that we do to help our community. Like, this is just, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, we understand.
I'm going to pay for the therapy for my children. Because this is out of control. This is out of control.
All right.
I'm sorry, to follow up with that, I think the biggest issue, and my biggest issue, is because I spoke with my adjuster about this issue. And I said, you know, am I going to be, is this going to happen to me? Is FEMA going to come in and say you have to lift your house? And they said, well, how many times is your home flooded? I said, for the 36 years my husband has lived in this neighborhood, this home has not flooded on the street to his knowledge. They said they're not going to do that after the first time. So for those of us, to our knowledge, if our home has only flooded this one time, why are we now being penalized for a storm that we had no control over?
Maybe we have an answer to that, but it's the regulations, I believe, are evolving.
Okay, so the only thing I can say to that, is you have structures that may have been deemed repetitive loss structures, so you have multiple claims. The 50, I get, right. It's always on all of us in the special flood hazard area, unfortunately. Typically, it's your regular maintenance, right? People are getting roof permits. They're doing, you know, just regular maintenance. And although we're tracking it behind the scenes, it's not until a significant event happens that people really realize, hey, there's this rule. I'm subject to these rules. I'm in the special flood hazard area. So I don't have a good answer for you as to why they would be, I mean, maybe they don't understand substantial damage. Maybe they're thinking repetitive loss damage. But it's always happening. Like, every time you guys do something in the back, we're looking at the market value, we're looking at the cost of improvement, and we're making a percentage. It's just the extent of this is overwhelming for everybody. And especially for you guys who were affected. And the only thing I can say is we're doing our best, but it's always there. It's just you don't notice until now I have to make thousands of dollars in repairs that it's really going to affect you. So on a normal everyday, year to year, it doesn't affect you, you know?
I don't mind paying thousands of dollars for repairs because it did get flooded, but I can't, because FEMA won't let me. So what do I do now? That's why I've got to get a reappraisal. There's another $500. So, you know, it's not you guys' fault. You really don't have anything to do with it. And we understand that. But unfortunately, you get to be the listener. And listeners suck. It really does. I've been there. Okay? But it's FEMA that's killing us. Yep. And there's absolutely nothing we can do about it because FEMA's federal government. They do any goddamn thing they want. And there's nothing we can do, any of us, to stop it.
Yeah, we have to. Yeah, we have to be compliant. We're happy to listen. We understand the frustration.
Exactly. And you're going to lose a lot of residents in this city that can't afford to redo what they have to have done, and they can't afford to live here with the insurance after the fact.
Excuse me.
There goes Florida.
There is procedure to mitigate the damage for the flooding before it happens. It can be done by installing gates temporarily on the door entrance, whatever the low point that's below the expected surge. You can install like a steel gate with rubber to seal it. I did it temporarily because it was before the flooding. I did it with a plywood and sealant, and it helped reducing the flood was outside like 4 feet and inside it was 1.5 feet or something. This procedure can mitigate the damage from flooding to the highest point. You put like the window sill. If you raise this gate, that you can install it temporarily. The same way you board your windows on the time of hurricane, you can install this. If you have 2 doors, 3 doors, you can make custom gate with steel and rubber to make it ready for the time of when there is a surge expected, and this can let you keep your home at the same level with, this is also in compliance with the International Building Code, and I know that the Florida Building Code is taken from the International Building Code. International not meaning the whole world, international mean the USA. And this can mitigate the damage happening from flooding. So this is like a cost-effective method, not to enforce on us to lift the houses or cannot get insurance and then go houses for foreclosure. And this is not a good policy. I see that all what you're saying is you have to do, you have to do, you have to do, and FEMA is not doing anything. You cannot do anything. FEMA, the title for everything they say is a guideline, but this guideline is like killing us, and it's still a guideline. We didn't force you, it's a guideline. But guideline, you will lose the NFIP, you will lose your insurance, you will lose your mortgage. You're not welcomed here. That's the conclusion. You cannot enforce anything on anybody, only us, the homeowners. So if, as a middle point that we can meet at, if somebody cannot afford to upgrade their houses to the FEMA guidelines, they can do something called the dry flood mitigation, which is boarding your windows or preparing something like a gate to the lowest point of the house to make it above the flood plain elevation and get the approval on that. That's really if you want to help. But if you want to come on us like, you guys, just do this or else, this is not going to work.
Well, thank you for that information.
Thank you.
Okay.
You pay for an appraiser and get the appraisal done, but Pinellas County still comes over and says, nope, this house is done. You're out of money there too, correct?
Yeah, it's a risk, right?
How are you guys handling rental properties, like people that own homes and rent them out? Is this something totally different?
It's the same process. It doesn't matter whether the structure is owner occupied or not.
It does in terms of that person being able to do any repairs, right? That's what she said, right? She said if you own it but don't live in it.
Oh, you're talking about an owner builder. I thought you meant FEMA guidelines.
No. So I'll get the Florida statute for you, and like I said, the city doesn't require you to we just require you to be the property owner, because you're going to be signing, I am the owner of this property, and you're going to be filling out the forms. When it comes to obtaining a building permit through the county for all your building regulation, building codes, that's when the owner-builder Florida statute thing kicks in. So by Florida statute, they say you can and can't do certain things. So as a primary resident, these are the two top things. It's like a 2-sheet page thing. The top things that get people are, is it your primary residence, and that you basically promise not to sell within like 12 months.
But if it's not your primary residence, does that mean that the person who owns the home cannot get a permit to do the work themselves?
Essentially. But I would definitely defer that to Pinellas County and make sure that they don't have something else in play. But on your typical, that is by Florida statute, that's when you're allowed to do an owner-builder. If you don't meet this criteria, you gotta have a licensed contractor do the application for you.
Well, thank you guys, and really, if we can be of assistance, please give us a call. Thank you guys.
Wait a minute, maybe I don't want to.